One of the first foods that I started growing 3 years ago were potatoes in buckets, because I figured that when it comes to growing plants for food, one of the best places to start are things which were traditionally grown by peasants, because they needed stuff which was calorie dense, reliable and reasonably easy to grow. And since then I've decided that I'm just always going to grow my potatoes in buckets like this for a few reasons. It allows me to easily empty out the bucket into a wheelbarrow and make sure that everything has been harvested and I don't accidentally leave something in the ground. I don't have to break my back digging up the ground, and for me this one is particularly important. And then any diseased or dodgy looking plants, I can just move them downwind, out of the way, and then if after a week or two I'm pretty sure they're diseased, I can just get rid of it, the whole plant and the compost included, without ruining that soil spot in my garden for the next 2 or 3 years. Like anything raised off the ground, it's less likely to be trampled by children or pets, or even myself when I'm not paying attention, which does occasionally happen. And then the last reason I love growing them this way is because once they've matured, I can just cut the top of the plant off, cover it with a good layer of leaves or straw, move the buckets to a more sheltered area of the garden and just leave it there until I'm ready to cook with it. And even through winter into spring, this still works. Obviously I can't leave it too long into the spring or the new potatoes will start to grow, but at that point we're in the hungry gap and I've already cleared out a lot of the food that I grew the previous season anyway, and I've got a lot more room in my kitchen and my pantry for the potatoes. I love growing potatoes this way and I'm always going to do it, but I have made one important change since I first started growing them this way that I wanted to share, and that is to grow something which is a nitrogen fixer and a mushroom.
You would not believe what I just saw in the garden. I'm going to show you. Look at it! This is wine cap mushrooms. I put this in the sawdust, well not in the sawdust, in the wood chip here last year, and the idea is with these is that they're so fast growing, is that once they're in the wood chip, you never have to plant them again. Last year my first wine cap that came up got eaten by the slugs. Some of these have been attacked, but there's enough for us to actually have some and eat some. That is, oh, he got one. This is my first mushroom from the garden. That is absolutely amazing.
With the incredibly warm and dry weather we've been having for the last 2 months, the wine cap has had this incredible added benefit of hugely reducing how quickly the potato needs to be watered. And I've noticed this effect in other areas of my garden where the mushroom is constantly fruiting. The mycelium just holds on to the water like a magnet, and I get the added benefit of getting to harvest the mushrooms from the bucket whenever they're fruiting and less watering. And the last companion plant that I'm always going to plant with them is something which is a nitrogen fixer. Now in this case I prefer chickpeas over beans. I have tried it with beans, but what I found is they're such magnets for slugs that while some of the beans and the peas have survived, the majority didn't. However, the slugs leave chickpeas alone, and chickpeas are also nitrogen fixing plants. Last year I only had 2 buckets which had chickpeas growing in there with them, and they did so well compared to the rest of the buckets. Now before anyone asks, yes, I know my potatoes look a little bit strange, but that's because I prune them quite aggressively and it means that they end up having more of a tree-like shape. And the reason I do this is because I don't want the leaves to be really close to the ground, and then if we have a load of wet weather, all of that moisture just condensing underneath, where you're more likely to end up with weird diseases and rot. And it also means that I don't have to search around under the leaves and see if there are any mushrooms coming up. I can just look, see if there are any mushrooms ready to be collected and just pick them. Otherwise what happens is I don't spot the mushrooms, they get way past the point of needing to be picked, and I've just lost a perfectly very tasty mushroom which I could otherwise have eaten.